Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the April My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. I'm really excited to share this layout with you. This month in the kit, we received lots of products. Many of the papers and embellishments were from the Prima Marketing In Full Bloom collection, and I think it's my favorite Prima collection to date. I loved the color scheme. I really love all of the flowers and the birds and the butterflies, and I just found these papers so easy to work with. Off camera, I fussy cut the top off of this piece of paper. It had a brown wash, and you could see little bits of brown on the right-hand side of the pattern paper. I wanted, though, to combine this green color on the bottom and all of the flowers in the middle with a blue pattern paper that was also in the kit. And I like this combination because I think it looks like the sky on the top and the grass on the bottom. So I used a pencil and I drew a line where I wanted to cut the blue paper. I cut a little below the line I drew just to make sure I didn't cut the paper too short. I didn't want to waste any of the paper, so I always make sure that anything that's going to be covered up, I try to cut that paper out and use it in some way on one of my layouts. Now I'm fitting the two pieces of paper together. I have the white border all around the outside, and I use a pencil so I know where to cut that blue paper. And I am very happy so far with the way that everything is fitting together on the layout. I'm using some Distress ink in Vintage Photo. I inked the edge of the fussy cut area and then all around the outside of both pieces of paper. And then I also inked the edges of all of the different embellishments I'm going to use on this page. One of the things that I absolutely loved about this collection was that there were lots and lots of flowers to fussy cut, something that I love to do. So you can see I have a nice big stack of them to the right of my layout. Now I'm using the stencil that we received in this month's kit and some Distress Oxide in Mowed Lawn, and I'm adding some touches to the bottom part of the layout. I liked the addition of bright green. Again, I'm thinking of grass and sky, so I thought that this was an addition that would add a little bit more of a brighter green to the layout and then also add some texture too. I don't want to cover the entire area with the stenciling. I just want to add little touches in a couple of spots. For the top of the layout, I wanted to add some stenciling and use some modeling paste. So I'm using a stencil from my stash. It's called Mini Cherry Blossoms, and this is made by the Crafters Workshop. I really like this particular stencil because it's not symmetrical. You can position it in different ways and the branches look a little different. So I have the stencil going in one direction on the left-hand side, and then I switched it up for the right-hand side. I was going to add a little bit more stenciling in the middle between the two areas that I've already added stenciling to, but then I decided to hold off because I wasn't sure and I thought I could always add a little bit more later on. I added a little bit on the bottom, that ends up getting covered up by my photo, and then I added a few more touches on the left-hand side. Because I'm not putting any sprays or paints on top of this modeling paste, I wanted the stenciling to be very crisp and clear. So I probably should have waited until the first round of stenciling dried before I added more, but luckily I was able to add more stenciling without messing up the stenciling that I already had on the paper. Now the modeling paste is dry, so I am attaching the blue pattern paper down to a piece of white cardstock, and then I'm layering the green and flowered paper on top of it. I add a little bit of adhesive to some of the flowers at the top of the second pattern paper. I try to be very careful though, because sometimes the ATG adhesive can rip delicate pieces of paper, and I figured I could always add a little bit more adhesive later on. I don't know if it was necessary, but there were a couple of spots on the left-hand side that I thought needed a little bit more stenciling. So I'm once again using my modeling paste and my stencil, and I'm adding a few more flowers in just a couple of spots. Right here, I added some stenciling, and the flowers didn't turn out quite as crisp as the rest of them did. I decided to just leave them, though, because it wasn't too far off. At first, I was a little disappointed because I really am not sure what caused that to happen, but I decided that it was fine and I should just keep going and not worry about it too much. I could have scraped it off, but I was afraid that would have made more of a mess than anything. So now I have my photo, which I'm mounting on a piece of white cardstock, and then I am again mounting it on a piece of pink pattern paper from the kit. I used my Creative Memories oval cutters that I absolutely love. I've had them for a really long time, like many people have, and they work really well. It's my favorite cutting system for circles and ovals. I wanted to add just a little tiny bit of dimension to the page, so I used some fun foam. You can see I'm trying to use up some of my scraps, and then I add some ATG adhesive to the back. Sometimes the ATG adhesive doesn't really cooperate, but I don't like to add permanent adhesive. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I sometimes like to move things around. So for right now, I'm going to use that temporary adhesive, but I will have to secure it with some liquid glue. Look at this beautiful yellow butterfly. They're all beautiful, but that big one I think is just so eye-catching. I'm going to have a couple of different butterflies on this layout. And then there were a number of journaling cards in the kit this month, and I use them for so many different things. And this particular one says BeeYOYtiful, and I decided that I was going to cut that sentiment out of the journaling card. And then I used a corner rounder. I rounded all four corners, and I inked the edges with the distress ink. These large flower clusters that I am trialing on my layout now, those were cut out of a piece of pattern paper. These flower clusters were on the other side of the paper that I used on the bottom of this page. Since we got 2 of each sheet of pattern paper in this month's kit, I was able to use 1 sheet of paper for the background, and then I was able to fussy cut out the other one. And I got a lot of use out of those fussy cut pieces, not just on this layout, but on some of the other layouts that I made using this kit. I wanted to add another layer to the title, so I used a piece of the blue pattern paper that I used at the top of the layout, and I cut it into a rectangle. Once again, I rounded the corners and inked the edges with the Vintage Photo Distress ink. And now I'm mounting the title that says BeeYOYtiful on a piece of thick cardstock because I want to pop it up on some foam and give it a little bit of dimension. So I wanted to reinforce it before doing that. And I added some more of those little scraps of foam, and now I'm layering the slightly smaller yellow piece over the blue piece, and that's going to go right underneath my photo. Right now I have that really cute bird to the left of my photo, and I really liked that bird, so I was considering adding some more birds. You could see 2 of them to the right of the mat. I was going to fussy cut those out, but then I was thinking that I didn't want to have a whole bunch of birds and a whole bunch of butterflies. I decided to stick mainly with the butterflies and just add 1 bird as an accent on this layout, but I will use those birds on other layouts. Now I'm adding some foam to the backs of all the butterflies' wings to give them a little bit of dimension. The photo that I'm using for this layout is a picture of both of my daughters. This was taken quite a few years ago. We went to Philadelphia where they have this place called the Magic Gardens. There was a man, he was an incredible artist. He covered an entire house with all kinds of mosaics made of all kinds of different materials. And then in the same area as that house, there were lots and lots of murals painted on buildings all over. And we thought this particular mural was just so beautiful. I loved the bright yellow flowers in the background. And so I thought this would be a perfect combination with the light yellows and the deep yellows that were in the butterflies on this page. I decided to put a little bit of foam behind the bird as well. I figured that could use a little bit of dimension too. And then I added a very tiny little butterfly to the title. At this point, I was thinking that it would look nice to add 1 more of those clusters of flowers right underneath the photo. I thought it would look nice to have kind of a cascade of flowers going almost down to the bottom of the page on the left, and then have the flowers a little bit higher on the right-hand side of the photo. Something I really like to do when I have a round or oval photo is add strips of pearls all the way around the mat. So I used these strips of 4mm pearls. I got these at Hobby Lobby a while ago. I had to use, I think, about 4 strips of them, and I made my way all the way around the photo. Sometimes the strips of pearls will stay initially, and then they will kind of lift up off the page later on. So if that happens, I use some glossy accents to attach them back down. There were lots and lots of beautiful flowers, as usual, in the limited edition kit this month, but I liked the way there were lots of these daisies that matched in so beautifully with the daisies on the paper. So I put 3 of them on top of the photo. When I first looked at the pack of daisies, I thought I'll never use all of these. There are 24 of them, but I have to tell you, I used every last one on the 4 layouts that I made this month. I just thought they were a great size, and I just loved the way they went so nicely with the papers. I sometimes like to add glitter paste to some of the embellishments on the layout that I want to emphasize a little bit. So I use some Opal glitter medium. Once again, I got this on clearance at Hobby Lobby a while back, and I brushed a coat of it on all of the butterflies, on the little bird, and also on these really pretty flowers. And I put 2 coats on each of them just to make sure that the glitter was spread out evenly. Now I'm doing a little bit of pruning of the branches at the top of the page. I wanted to add some jewels to the butterflies. I will usually add pearls down the centers of the butterflies, but I loved the purple that was on the centers of these butterflies. So I decided that instead of putting a line of pearls down the center, that I was going to add a number of different jewels and pearls all over the wings of the butterflies. I started off with these little iridescent jewels. They come in strips, and I cut them into individual pieces. And I placed a number of them on not just the wings of the butterflies, but also the center of that little tiny butterfly at the bottom, because those were the only jewels that would fit on that butterfly. I also added a couple of silver jewels. I only had a couple of those, and I added them to the large butterfly. And then I also added some self-adhesive pearls of different sizes to all of the butterflies. For the larger butterflies, I added some of the larger pearls, and then for the smaller ones, I stuck to the smaller size pearls. On the title, there were 2 really, really tiny flowers, so I added the smallest sized pearls that I had to those. I continued to add the pearls until I felt that all the butterflies had enough. I was really trying to have a random look to the placement of them. I tried adding 2 flowers in the lower left-hand corner. I thought that that area looked a little bit bare, but then later on I decided that it kind of interrupted the flow of the flowers on my layout, so I do end up taking that off. I added some leaves to the flowers at the top of the photo. One of the branches was the one that I cut off of the cluster in the upper right-hand corner earlier, and then I found another one, and I thought that added a nice little touch to those flowers. And then I was feeling that the butterflies needed just a couple more embellishments, so I added a couple more pearls to them. And then on this journaling card, I noticed it was a really, really tiny bee, so I fussy cut out that little bee, and I'm going to include that in the lower right-hand corner of my title. I thought that it would be nice to have the butterfly in the upper left-hand corner of the title, and then I could have a little bee in the lower right-hand corner. Before attaching the bee down, I inked the edges, and that is the very last touch on this layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate you watching it all the way to the end. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun working with this month's kit. If you are interested in purchasing a subscription to one of the 4 My Creative Scrapbook kits, or if you just want to know a little bit more about the kits, you can check out all the information on the My Creative Scrapbook website. The link to the website will be in the description box. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.